This tip may end up being the most valuable tip I could ever share with you. It's a simple one, but it's extremely effective and powerful. You'll often find yourself in a situation at the poker table where it simply comes down to this. Does he have it, or is he bluffing? All the cards are dealt out, and your opponent has made a bet on the river. You have a marginal hand that could beat a bluff, but you couldn't beat a legitimate hand. For example, let's say the final board looked like Jack 8, 4, 4, 6, and you have 8, 9. If your opponent isn't bluffing, well, then he probably has a pair of 8s beat. He might have a pair of jacks, a full house, a lot of hands beat you, really. It all comes down to a read. Now, generally, in these situations, you go over the hand in your head and ask yourself some important questions. How often does my opponent bluff? If he had a strong hand, would he play it this way? Could he have a busted drawing hand? Would he try to bluff if he had a misdraw? Does he think I was on a draw and is trying to steal the pot with a busted draw himself? Does he look like he's bluffing? Often you'll go through that list of questions and come up with a definitive answer as to whether or not you should call your opponent. If, for example, you answer that your opponent bluffs rarely, that yes, if his hand was strong, he'd play the way he did, that it's unlikely he'd have a busted drawing hand, or that he'd try to bluff if he missed a draw, that maybe he thinks I was on the draw and is trying to steal the pot with a busted draw, and that no, he doesn't look like he's bluffing. It's not always going to be that easy, of course. Sometimes you'll go through that list of questions and still have no idea what to do. I've been in that spot many, many times, and I'm sure you have too. So what should you do in this situation? Go with your first instinct. Think back to the very first thought that came to you and go with it. That instinct comes from the most powerful computer in the world, your subconscious mind. Your subconscious brain acts as a computer collecting data and storing it away for later use. Have you ever been in a poker hand and somehow just felt like your opponent was bluffing? You can't explain why, really, but something is telling you that you need to make the call. That's not magic at all. That's your subconscious mind sending you a message based on all the data it's compiled. Your brain has seen the situation pop up many times before, and while you aren't aware of it consciously, it gets stored in your subconscious. The more often you trust in your subconscious, the better you'll become at reading people. Practice makes perfect. If you approach every poker hand scientifically, going over the pot odds, calculating the odds of your opponent having a certain hand, etc., you may miss out on an important message being delivered to you from your subconscious mind. It's often described as feel, and all of the truly great poker players, they have it. When making a poker decision, you should still always go over the facts of the hand, of course. Backtrack the betting, past behavior, your opponent's current emotional state, figure out the math, etc. Do everything you can to solve the puzzle on your own. But when all else fails, it's time to rely on your instincts.